This is the 21.5 Show.
You're on 121.5, the emergency frequency.
Whether you're a professional pilot or want to be one, you're in the right place.
Let's get started.
Join professional aviators Dylan and Max as they talk their experience in the airlines, business aviation, and more.
Life is good.
Industry experts, unique stories, and plenty of fun. This is the 21.5 Show.
Here we go.
Welcome back. It is another episode of the 21.5 Show, a podcast by professional pilots for professional pilots, and today for light sport pilots. Hello, Maxwell.
Hey,
What's happening?
just living the dream, getting ready to head out tomorrow morning at about 4:40 a.m., go to the airport and do what we do.
Do what you
Do what we do.
So that's good because that means you're flying AMs, right?
Yes, I mean, so
So you're thrilled.
which really lines. I'm very getting over some jet lag, which strikes late afternoon. So at that PM after jet lag would just put me in the ground.
You'd be in the ground.
I would not be fit to fly.
Well, if you haven't figured it out, Maxwell is an airline pilot who prefers flying in the morning. I myself am a corporate pilot, and today was nice. I had a nice leisurely about 1:30 departure. Landed about 2:30, put the airplane away, and that was it. So that's a nice
so
little
gentlemanly.
window. Yeah, very gentlemanly time. But that's the beauty of aviation.
But you did miss going to the lake.
That's
Which is
true.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
So I just took Dylan's whole family without him, unfortunately.
Max is so proud. This is a proud moment. I think we should actually post this. Max has been restoring a 2004? 2001 Ford Expedition.
No, it's an excursion.
Excursion,
Don't
sorry.
insult me.
Yeah, sorry.
It's the largest SUV ever made.
It is. It really suits your personality.
For those of you that don't know what that even is, there's probably some youngsters that don't even we're still in diapers in 01. It's a SUV built on a 3/4 ton diesel truck frame and an F-250 frame. So it's the whole thing. But
It's a very masculine. What's the license plate, Max? Would you like to share that?
So I was watching this YouTube video, this build, and I was trying to figure out this thing with the turbo, and the guy, he goes, "Yeah, it's an excursion. It's like a Suburban, but for men." And I'm like, I thought that was great. So yeah, the license plate says SBRB, the number 4 MN, Suburban for men.
It is definitely.
I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah.
You just brought that up.
Yeah, and you've got the bench seat in the front, which not a lot of cars.
It's not a bench seat. I put in replace the center console with a center console from a later model F-250 that flips up into another seat. So
Yeah. No,
it's dual purpose.
It's not a lot of guys rolling around with 3 wide in the front. So
yeah, 3 wide. That means we can hold 9 comfortably, and 3 coolers and tow boat. It's great.
Spectacular vehicle. If you're ever in the Scottsdale, Phoenix area, please let us know. We'll be happy to come take you for a ride in the Suburban for men.
It's great. Put a big stereo system in it, big subwoofer. It's all. It's so fun.
All right. Well, let's transition from big, heavy vehicles to the opposite end of the spectrum. Max, several folks sent us some videos and a social media profile of a pilot named Katie, who had been posting about her experience getting her certificates in light sport aircraft, and she was able to do it for a very low cost. And a lot of people said, "Hey, talk to her, figure out what's going on. Is this something that we can do also? Did we find a little hack? Is there a little loophole here to get some cheap flight training?"
That's interesting. A lot of people have tried to find shortcuts in aviation, and almost all have failed. And when I heard about her deal, I was like, she actually found an angle that is bona fide, and it's a real thing.
Yeah,
that's why we had her on the show. It's rare you find somebody that figures out a hack or an angle on aviation that works. So,
and if there's anybody that loves an angle, it's me and you. Scouring Facebook Marketplace all week for deals on Formula One racing simulators. every week it's something new.
I don't know if I'm ready to admit this.
We are hunting for deals, but yeah, it's a great conversation with Katie. I will say, I was hoping that we could just like patent and replace her or like duplicate her process for folks, and it sounds like you would have to be pretty special circumstances to be able to duplicate it, but I don't know. I'm still thinking. I mean, we were just talking. There's another flight school that's doing some light sport stuff.
You see those popping up a lot more.
Yeah.
You know the Mesa airline pilot development that was like used to fly Bonanzas and stuff like that. They're flying those little light sports, and they just send these people out to just go build time because it's the cheapest way to do it.
Exactly.
And then like I fly into Long Beach all the time, and there's this sling academy out there. There's all these slings flying around. Like I don't understand why we're flying around in 4-seat airplanes when the cost is the biggest threat to learning to fly. Like why is everybody not I can't believe the Cessna Skycatcher didn't catch on more. Like you'd think everyone would trust Cessna and be like, oh, this is great. This is like the new version of the 150.
Yeah.
We can run around for cheap. Like why didn't that work? What happened to the Skycatcher?
I don't know. Well, lots of questions about light sport. I think you're going to enjoy this interview. We'll jump right into it right now. And then
I'm not done talking.
Well, I know, but we're kind of giving it all away here.
I know. I'm kidding.
We'll do a little wrap up at the end. All right, here it is. Max, we're so excited to be joined today by Katie. Some folks on Instagram may know her as Pilot Kaity. She is a PC-12 and citation pilot. And we're excited to chat with her today to learn a little bit about the light sport training and the little loophole she found.
I know.
Welcome to the program, Katie.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Katie, we'd love to hear a little bit about your background. How did you get involved in aviation, and how did you discover the light sport training angle?
Yeah, so I started flying in 2016. My dad was an A-10 pilot, and he now works for a major airline. And I was making my way through college and ignored his advice to join the Air Force and decided to join the Army because I wanted to sleep in the rain and carry heavy things for a living. So ended up in the Army, and a few years into that realized that I kind of wanted to do something else pretty quickly. That was also right when the Army had opened combat arms to women. So I was in that first wave of female combat arms officers, and there really was not a whole lot to do. There was not a lot of peers. So I just started learning to fly kind of as a hobby. And my dad just kind of gave me the good advice of get your pilot's license. If you hate it, it looks good on a resume. If you like it, it's a good career. So I would kind of use it as an outlet. I'd drive out to Altus, Oklahoma. I was stationed at Fort Sill, which is Lawton, Oklahoma.
Shout out. I've been there many times.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you really?
I used to fly the Saab American Eagle right into the Lawton. There's turtles on the runway there.
Oh, there's all kinds of things on the runway there.
Fun fact. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Lawton is a wild place.
Yeah.
There's not much to do out there, as you know. So there's longhorn, there's buffalo, rattlesnakes, and that's about it.
Yeah.
I started learning to fly, quickly fell in love with it, and then got out of the Army. And then because I did kind of like guard and active duty, I didn't have 100% of the GI Bill. So I was looking at all the different ways to pay for flight training, and the 141 route, which you have to do for the GI Bill at the time, I was doing the math and I was like, I'm going to basically spend as much on like the small percentage I had left rather than just trying to pay on my own. So I really wanted to get through flight training without any debt because I've always wanted to be a mom, like since I was a little kid. I didn't know I wouldn't get married till I was like 33, but like you don't know what you don't know. So that whole time I was trying to figure out like, what do I want to do, in my life? What do I want to look like? I want to work, obviously I want to have a career, but I want to have the option to stop and like be home without like handing my husband a bunch of loans and being like, I want to be home now. So I was trying to do the whole aviation thing without any debt, which as everybody knows, is super hard. It's insanely expensive, and most of us don't have just like $100,000 of cash sitting around. So I was living in Florida when I got out of the Army, and I was just like knocking on flight school doors, which is something I encourage a lot of people to do. Aviation is a really old school industry, and going in person in business casual with a paper resume and like showing that you're a presentable human being goes a long way. And I kind of fell upon this flight school that did light sport flight training. And so basically what that is It's a single engine airplane. It looks a lot like a 150 or 152. It just has to be under a certain weight, and then you can do certain things with your license. But it's just kind of for pilots that want to fly for fun. They don't really want to go the professional route.
Right.
So the thing about being a light sport CFI is you can start teaching without a commercial rating, without an instrument rating, any of those things, because the FAA sees compensation for flight instructing as compensation for teaching and not piloting. So it's the same reason that you can be a flight instructor with basic med. And so basically what I did is I got my private license, then I built to 150 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And the flight school kind of helped me with that as an exchange for labor that I was doing, so that it wasn't like being compensated through flight time. I was like paying through driving the fuel truck and like working the front desk and all that stuff. And then I started working as a light sport CFI at 150 hours, which basically meant I stopped paying for flight training, So like that 50 hours of cross-country PIC that you need for an instrument rating, I was a CFI doing that. And then when I went to do my instrument rating, I had all my, aeronautical requirements basically paid for, and I was being paid at the same time to get those. So it saved me a ton of money. I was able to do the whole thing for under $35,000, which I had that money like saved up from when I was in the Army. And it was just an amazing route for me. A lot of people don't even know this is possible because they don't know that you can instruct without that commercial through this sort of loophole.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the route that I took. It was really cool. I feel really grateful for being able to get into aviation without any debt. It really has made it a much more enjoyable experience through all the ups and downs that we know occur. But that's kind of what I started to put out on my social media, because during this time I also saw, like, I would have students that would come over from a big flight school after they had paid like $80,000 or $90,000 up front, and that flight school had closed their doors and like left the country or gone into bankruptcy court.
There was
And I've
just one
seen
in the
all
news
kinds
the
of-
other day. I'm pretty sure I saw.
Yeah.
A bunch of people lost their
Yeah.
deposits, right? Wait, hold on.
It's
So
super sad.
let me start this over. So you got your regular private, like in a 172 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you went to the light sport, and then you did your light sport CFI next?
Correct.
Okay. And then you started instructing, and then you did your instrument next? Single engine
Yeah. So
instrument?
then I just did normal instrument commercial because I knew I wanted to go the professional
So did the
route.
flight school have light sport and have regular airplanes?
Yeah, they had light sport and then they had a Cherokee. And what they would do for employees is they would give us the planes at cost, which was like $40 an hour. One of my other instructor friends who's now at United, he had his like full CFI is kind of what we would call it, which is what we typically think of. It's a CFI A. And so he was time building too, and he was just doing day VFR in the light sport. So he would want to get more nighttime and instrument. So we would go train at night, and I would pay for the whole thing just to kind of like, as a thank you for his instructing, which still was $40 an hour for me, And then we would get all that done, and then I would just go take my check ride and move on to the next one. So it was super inexpensive, and I was very proficient because I flew, like 700 hours that year as a light sport CFI. And then I'm flying all day, and then I'm teaching, and the light sport's pretty much the same maneuvers as a private, so you're teaching stalls, you're teaching steep turns to the same standards. And then I go take my instrument rating and my commercial check ride, and it was like such an easy path for me.
Yeah.
And then when I went and did my CFI, which everybody kind of asks, they're like, well, was your CFI an initial? And the answer was yes, because the FAA doesn't really know what to do.
Yeah.
So they make your CFIA an initial, which is fine, but you're way more proficient. You've already been teaching. You've been flying from the right seat. Being able to explain like how a wing flies is super easy because that's my day job, So it was a great hack, and I really enjoyed it. It's something that saved me a lot of money, but people just don't really know that it is out there.
Yeah, that's a really interesting path. What about the multi-engine part of it?
So that I just paid for on my own. At that point, I was just like, okay, I'm going to spend $5,000.
Just did the add-ons and
Yeah,
called
just
it a
did
day.
the add-ons. And that's really what cost the most. Like I ended up paying, I got my ATP initial as a single engine ATP in the Pilatus sim at Flight Safety. And then I just went and did my ATP multi add-on. And I think it was like $4,000 just because I went and rented a DA42 and just like did it with a DP,
Right.
So it's still cheaper. I mean, it's kind of a weird route, but that's the whole thing.
Makes a lot of
I
sense.
have all the ratings that you need, and it was all legitimately under 35
Yeah,
grand
that's
to get through
insane.
all
How
that.
did you feel instructing with 150 hours?
Yeah.
So that's a great question. Everybody asks that. And honestly, I probably didn't feel any different than someone instructing with 180 or 250.
Well, wait a minute. So
Like,
how much time did you have when you got your private?
I think I had like 65 or 70 hours.
And then how much time did you spend training to be a light sport CFI?
So you have to get to 150 total.
Oh, okay. So
Wow.
that is a limit. Okay.
So you got to time build somehow. And that was another thing where this flight school was like, it was at a time when everybody needed CFIs. So
Mm.
they're like, well, if you'll tell us, hey, you'll sign a contract that you'll work here for 6 months, then we will, you can work the front desk, and instead of us paying you, you can have the plane. So you're not being compensated still, because we all want
Right.
to follow the rules. You have to be careful, and you don't want any kind of like unfair advantages. But that was something they did. So I was like, okay, I'll get to 150. And then, I thought that was a very fair trade, 6 months for
sure.
if I
Absolutely.
want to work there anyway.
So you're in the people that you're instructing for light sport, this is mostly weekend warrior folks, or are these people that like have aspirations to become a professional pilot and they're trying to sort of start somewhere? Like who are you instructing?
It was a mixed bag. In Florida, there's a lot more people that don't really want to do anything except a light sport.
Yeah.
You have to be really careful as a light sport CFI, because a
Yeah.
lot of people think it means you don't have to have a medical, and they, think, oh, I know I can't get a medical, so I'm just going to go be a light sport pilot, which is not allowed. You have to basically be able to say, I do not have any known issues that would make me fail a medical. And I have never failed a medical. So I started having that be like one of the things my students would sign, because I did have to file one NASA because I had someone who was diabetic, who I soloed. I had, asked him all the normal questions. And after his solo, he's like, I'm so glad I was able to do this. And I'm diabetic. And I was like, what? So I went and reported that to the FAA and everything. And I was just like, okay, I'm learning. You have to be very careful, because people do not understand this. Even now I see people say, well, I got my medical deferred, so I'm just going to be light sport until then. And even in the light sport community, there's a lot of discussion. Some people think you can do that. I think you can't, because I think that means you have something that would make you not pass a medical. If the FAA has not passed you on a medical, to me, it's like, okay, you can't.
But
pass a
deferred
medical,
deferred isn't a denial. You're just
Right, and
your
that's the
medical just
argument.
expired, and you're waiting
Well,
for a decision.
Possibly. Yeah, exactly.
Therein
So
lies
that's
the
the
gray
argument.
area.
Exactly.
But then you've got to put
Exactly.
your name on the line, so I could definitely
Right.
understand why you would want to be careful.
So, but there are some changes coming down the pipe for light sport that's proposed, right? So,
Yeah.
So they're going to increase the stall speed to 54 knots. Okay. Increase the maximum speed to 250 knots. That seems pretty aggressive to me. Allow
Seems very
controllable pitch
aggressive.
propellers and retractable landing gear.
Wow.
So, what I'm curious of is your experience as a light sport instructor and taking these students from zero to hero and the whole thing. What do you think about that?
So to be very candid, that makes me nervous.
And no weight limit. That's it. Because right now there's a weight limit. So essentially, this means with a light sport, you could fly a Bonanza,
Right.
like
wow.
Right.
a Glass Air,
Right.
a Columbia.
So I go back and forth, because on one side, the limit, so instead of like 40 hours for a private, you only need 20. However, I have never seen anybody get a sport license at 20 hours, because nobody is proficient enough to take the check ride. They're
Yeah.
still at 40, 50, 60 hours, just like a private pilot. They honestly solo at even higher time, because light sports are a little twitchier to land.
I was going to
It
say,
only
yeah.
takes a long time to solo, and then it takes about the same amount of time to get to the check ride, and the check ride standards are the exact same as a private. So there is an argument to be made that, okay, well, they're basically a private pilot. However, they can't, fly at night. They can't do all these other things. So it's like, all right, they're sort of restricted. And I tend to be for like less regulation and personal responsibility. This is the one where I'm just a little nervous, because I do know the type of people I've trained, and they really are only, comfortable in the day, close to their airport, just kind of putzing around, doing their thing. And they don't need to be blasting out there in a Bonanza, with retractable gear.
250
that
knots.
makes me a little nervous. Yeah.
So let me
I'm
ask you
kind of
this.
surprised with that.
So if you get your light sport is it called a light sport private pilot or just light? What's it called?
Just light sport license.
Okay, so if you get your light sport license, right, and it took you however many hours, right, 30 or 40 hours or whatever it is, and then you say, okay, now I want to get a private pilot certificate. Does that time in the light sport count towards the minimum time requirements as a private pilot?
Yes. So it's all, airplane single engine land. So it counts, but you would need the 20 hours with an authorized instructor, which you now do not have because a light sport instructor is not authorized to train a private pilot. So you would need 20 hours of dual given with a full CFI. Just like with an instrument rating, you need 15 hours with a CF double I. But if you did hood time with somebody else, like that still counts towards your total time, towards your 40 hours of hood time or whatever it is.
Okay.
So, but it could be good. I mean, you could start with a sport, and if you, I love it, I'll move up.
That's what I'm saying. So if it's one of those things where it's like, a lot of people you hear, we'll get your, like you did, get your private pilot certificate, and if not, it looks good on a resume, and if you want to pursue it further, then great. Well, this is almost like putting only half of your toe in the water, because then it's a little bit less of a requirement and less money and everything. And the light sport airplanes are less expensive to operate because they burn 5 gallons an hour of auto gas and then road tax or whatever. Yeah. So it's a lot. So I feel like even like Dylan and I have young kids, and if they wanted to, weren't sure and wanted to try it or whatever, like this might be a good way. And it's not money that, is all for nothing if you want to pursue a
right. It counts.
Airplane single engine land private pilot. So.
So
yeah, exactly.
Light sport. It's a whole new thing.
We're learning so much here.
What
what airplane was that in? Is there sort of like a gold standard light sport airplane to learn in, or is there the 172 equivalent? Or tell us a little bit about the airplanes.
That school was all in Technam, so Eaglets and P92s and Bravos, and that's a great plane. They're fun to fly. A lot of them have glass panels. They got the Rotax. It's a great little airplane. But it's kind of expensive sticker price to buy one. And then the maintenance is cheaper because you don't have to have an A&P. You can have a light sport mechanic. So they just have to be overseen by an A&P. So there's a lot of things that make it make sense. And it's sort of more like in the experimental world where it's like this screw is not $400. It's like 20 because it's a light sport. It's not, standard category.
Okay. All right. So, Katie, you mentioned earlier that someday you want to have kids. Say you have a kiddo someday that wants to be a professional pilot. Knowing kind of what you know now, how would you strategically, let's say that you think that they actually want to do it and they're passionate about it, how would you, using all the light sports stuff that what would be sort of the plan you would lay out?
Yeah. So I think the first thing as parents is important to not push it on them. I think it needs to be available to them. That's super helpful. But if you're just like shoving it in their face, they're not going to want to do it. But just start by like bringing them on fun things that are enjoyable. So something that my dad did, because he owned a couple planes like while we were growing up, but he was an A-10 pilot, and he did not realize that we were always like about to puke in the back while he's doing acrobatics. So every time he would take us fly as a kid, we'd be ripping, and we were like, he thinks it's great, and we're like having fun for a little bit, and then we're gonna throw up. So just don't do that, Like we've kind of talked to him now with like the grandkids and everything. We're like, just take it easy, 30 degrees of bank max, let it be fun, let it be a really enjoyable experience for them. Get them a good headset, like so that they're not getting a headache from the noise, and just like little doses of access to it. And then I probably would go the light sport route. I mean, if they were kind of showing interest in a professional route, I would just go straight to the private, honestly, because if they're wanting to go that route, they're going to end up getting it anyways. And get them in a 172. It's a little bit easier to fly, honestly, than a light sport.
Can you use a light sport for a private pilot certificate?
Yeah. The challenge is really the DPE. Like, with half fuel, can you put 2 dudes in there? You know what I mean? Like, depending on the weights of them.
I've flown a light sport, and I sound like an idiot because now I can't remember what it was, but it was guy flew. His dad was like a rep for selling them or whatever, and he had one, and it's like
you're there.
I mean, you and I would be
it's gross.
You're close.
We'd be exchanging sweat. It would be
You're
gross.
Cozy.
Yeah,
it is. It's like 152. It's like,
but it is cheap.
Snug.
Yeah. Okay, Hoy, we interrupted you. So you get the private, let's say you think that they're into it. You get your private certificate in a regular standard airplane. then how do you fold the light sport angle in?
Yeah, I mean, if it just really would depend on the kid. Like, if they
Mhm.
really were like, I want to be a professional pilot, then I just wouldn't even do the light sport route. Honestly,
Okay.
I would buy like an RV or something and just have them fly that
Mhm.
and just work up from there.
But to
you
be a
know, and
light
then
sport instructor,
Yeah, but
that's the
yeah, that seems like the
that's the
little
hack.
magic move, right? Or no?
yeah, I mean, they could go that route too. It would just depend. Like, if they were like, we're going to use our college fund and just go straight through it, then I'd be like, just go straight to full CFI.
Hmm.
It would depend on the situation. So if you have the cash, like if you're like, I've got $60,000 of cash and I want to be a professional pilot, then I'm just like, just go full CFI, because the big limitation of this is the amount of students available to you,
Right.
because most people want a private pilot. So you're going to have to hustle to build a client base.
Right.
So, knowing my husband being an entrepreneur, like the kids probably will be hustling, but that is the big limitation. So they could start with the light sport route, but they're going to have to be like out on social media, building a client base. They're going to have to be figuring out how to build up students.
So there aren't like big light sports schools out there where you could just be like, oh, I'm going to go down and be an instructor there.
There's a
A
couple, but you'd
couple.
have to be willing to travel. Yeah. I know of like, maybe one in each state,
Isn't it a big
and
Technam school like over by Long Beach or something? I see them flying all the time.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
we've seen a couple while we're out on the road.
there's one in Phoenix. There's a couple. I mean, they're definitely out there, and people are doing private training in these as well. So that is another hack, is you can like have less expensive flight time. It can be a good time builder
Yeah.
because they're cheaper. The gas is cheaper. So, I mean, that could be a route, to get through the whole thing less expensively.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would just really depend on like I said, the big thing is the area you live in. Are you able to get students?
Yeah.
And what that looks like.
So,
if you're wanting
okay.
to just step into a school that gives you students, the light
gonna
sport
be
route, you're going
harder.
to have to move to one of those schools.
Right. So you move, but okay. So let's say you get your 100 hours and you got your private. You do find one of these schools. You move to Arizona, something like that. You do the light sport CFI.
Absolutely.
It could be a good way to build some of that time.
Yeah.
Pretty inexpensively.
It's so much cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't see, other than maybe doing gliders first,
Mhm.
I don't see anything else that you can get through it this
Yeah.
inexpensively.
I mean, it's a big topic that Max and I talk a lot about. Kind of one of our show's mottos is flexibility is the key to air power, and we didn't come up with that, but when you think about that, it applies in a lot of different ways. You as a corporate pilot probably understand that things change all the time, but one of the main things that limits any professional pilot's flexibility is debt, usually, because
Yeah.
if you have debt, a lot of times you can't take that unique job opportunity where you maybe move or take a pay cut to do something to build your resume and things like that. So it's one of the things I think when we did flight training 25 years ago, it was before fuel went up quite a bit,
Yeah.
and the time, and we just didn't have to make the investment that people have to make now. And it's such a struggle because, like you said, people come out with $200,000 in debt, and they don't have a choice. They have to go get that, maybe that really unpleasant CFI job, or work at a regional or something like that, where maybe that's not what they actually want to do, but they just don't have a lot of options. So to me, this is why it's as exciting, is like, if there's a way that you can avoid that big debt, you can really kind of choose your destiny a little bit more.
Yeah, and I've seen so many people that honestly they get to like the regional point and they just hate aviation at that point. Like they're just burnout, and I'm
Yeah.
like, this is still the beginning of your career. Like, I mean, obviously we've all worked hard and had hard days in aviation, but I've really enjoyed every step of it, because I have felt like, I could take like a year off. I
Mhm.
could go like if I really needed to, if I had some kind of major like act of God in my life where something went wrong, like I could make it work, because I don't have like the loans that these people are having. I have people that message me every day, like $1,400 a month payment, like $1,900 a month pay. Like it's insane. And I'm just like, how are you going to buy a house? Like it just makes me sad, especially for young women. Like most young women you talk to, they're like, yeah, I want to be a mom. It's like, okay, well, how is that literally going to happen? Even for young men, if you want to like be home, like who knows what your choices are, but like that debt takes away the choices, like you're saying. So I just love aviation. I'm like, I want everybody to have as positive of an experience with it as I had, but it breaks my heart because some of these people are not having fun right now because they're like, oh, I went to this flight school. I had to get a loan, through the flight school, and I have a 16% interest rate. And how do you even pay that as a CFI? Like, I don't think I ever made $1,500 a month as a CFI,
No.
like it's just, I don't get it. And it's just like, there's got to be a better way, like in this industry with such a high earning potential, there has got to be a better way to do this.
Yeah, it's interesting because in aviation, everybody's trying to figure out a way around the cost, and whether that's in flight training or if you're a private jet owner, they're always, oh, I got this new idea how we're gonna like. I'm like, dude, like we've seen so many people do this and fail miserably in all levels of aviation. It's interesting to see that you actually did it and it worked, like for once.
Yeah,
which is impressive
Yeah.
because like I said, we've all had, oh, now I got this great idea about how, have you heard, let me tell you, Uber for private jets.
We're gonna do it.
I've heard that one.
We're gonna figure it out.
Too. And like
I've never
SetJet
heard
in
that one before.
Scottsdale just failed. Like it's like all these
Every
different
time.
things and everybody trying to figure out a different way. And the problem is it's just such a big roadblock in
Yeah.
aviation. Like it just is what it is in most cases.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just, the OEMs have the control or whatever it is
Right.
in whatever
Yeah.
situation. There's just no way around it. And it's interesting that you figure that out.
Yeah. And like, obviously the whole thing is completely legal. So that's why I'm very split about the whole mosaic thing, which is that rule you were talking about that's going to, move up the stall speed and all the different weights and everything. Because there is a part of me that's like, man, the rules, although some of them are written in blood, many of them are just on the books because they're still on the books and they're holding back like people's innovation and the ability to keep costs down, which would help everybody in the economy. That helps like the person buying a ticket to go on vacation, So it's just kind of hard to look at it and see, like, obviously safety is number one, but if it's not a safety issue, I'm like, let's let people figure it out without all the rules because it really makes it extremely expensive.
Yeah.
Now, Katie, did you go to the Federal Register and make your public comment during the 90-day comment period on your feelings here? That's the question.
I did not. Yeah.
Let's
I
see.
did not.
Is it still open?
July 24th. So you still have time.
Maybe I will. That's probably something I
You
should do
should,
because I do
because
know
you
a
actually
little
have
bit.
good perspective. It just, for me too, it seems like the idea of light sport is a good idea, I think, because they're trying to reduce the cost and barrier to entry, right? It's the biggest
Right.
barrier to entry
Yeah.
to aviation is the cost. And, but dude, retractable landing gear, controllable pitch propellers, and 250 knots, like that's
I know.
And
like, we
in
might have
technically,
overshot.
and in via the rules, if that were to pass, you could do that with 20 hours.
Yeah, that's what
in
I'm saying.
theory.
Like and like you said, like, is there really that big of a difference between flying a light sport and a 172? Maybe it's even easier to
Yeah.
your point, but like, or a Warrior or whatever. Like, yeah,
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
you should be able to fly those, but this
I know it
seems.
seems a little aggressive. I don't fully understand the logic behind it because I have typically seen the FAA be the other way,
Yeah.
where they're like, oh, we're going to be really strict. This one seems like, hey guys, do whatever you want. And it's
Yeah.
like, wow.
Well,
why
but
are
it's kind of like that in like flying business jets, right? Like under Part 91, there's no
True.
requirement for any sort of flight times but for an SIC.
Yeah.
But guess who puts the most restrictive is the insurance company, which is where this is going
Right.
to come
Yeah,
into. I mean,
exactly.
insurance is going to put
That's
the kibosh
true.
on any of
so
this.
true.
But I suppose, I mean, there's a lot of people now that don't have insurance on their airplanes because they're like, it's too expensive.
Send it.
Yeah, just
Right.
Yeah.
send it.
Let's take a time out from our conversation to talk about another friend of ours, Timothy P. Pope, who's a certified financial planner dedicated to guiding professional pilots through smart financial planning. Whether it's saving for retirement, investment management, a seamless military transition, or strategic tax planning, Tim is your trusted financial partner. Join Tim as he leads engaging discussions on personal finance strategies for professional pilots on the Pilot Money podcast. Timothy P. Pope, helping professional pilots make the most out of life.
One other question I had when it comes to like going back to the instructing part, I wasn't really clear. Are you getting some type of certificate to be a light sport instructor, or what is it exactly that you have?
What kind of question
Yeah.
is that? What
It's like a full rating.
It is.
Like it's like
no, she just put
it's
it on
like
her
a-
Instagram profile.
Well,
I am now
I
a light
did-
sport
but-
instructor. I just want to make this
I
known.
declare
Yeah,
bankruptcy.
Yeah, I declare bankruptcy.
But it's with
Yeah.
it, but you said it's with a DPE.
Yeah,
Same thing.
exactly. So
Okay.
you go take a written test, you go take a check ride
Yeah.
with a light sport DP, or like, pretty much any DP that
Okay.
has the ability to do this,
Okay.
But there are some DPs that are just light sport DPs.
I just missed that part earlier. I
love when you just say stuff like
I didn't know. I missed that earlier.
now, did you have to get a license
Yeah,
to teach other people?
I
how
wanted to know
fly an
the
airplane?
process, if it's the same.
that's
That's what I
weird.
was trying to ask.
I know. I'm just making.
But it is a good question, because after that, like on the light sport side, like if you want to be like, oh, now I'm like a light sport seaplane pilot, it's
Yeah.
just an endorsement. But there's like, you can't
Oh.
fly in like Delta, Charlie, Bravo unless you get a one-time endorsement. So it's like, this is just
Wait, then you can get
it's
an
already pretty,
one only for that one entry.
yeah. Like, so if I have a pilot who's like a sport pilot and they're like, hey, I want to go fly into a Delta airport, they cannot as a sport pilot unless they fly with a CFI. I sign them off one time, just whenever I feel comfortable with it, and they can now do that. So they can basically kind of do almost anything a private pilot can do if they get that one time endorsement.
But at night you can't do anything at night ever.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
no endorsement for that.
Yeah. So that's another one where it's like, maybe that's why they're like, fly a different airplane. You're still only, I don't know. I don't
I think
understand
that's
the FAA's
actually an
logic.
okay system. Like, because some people just don't need to go into Class B airspace, and some people genuinely do like to operate where
Yeah.
they live. So you get like checked out on it. It's the same as
A la
getting
carte.
a high.
It's an a la carte
performance-
license.
Yeah, it's pretty
It's
good.
like buying a plane ticket on Delta, and you're like, well, do you want economy class? Do you want to get a
Yeah.
meal?
What do you need? What do you need? What are you willing to spend? And what do you want?
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, I've seen it work out so far. Like, I really have never had, generally pilots are pretty responsible. They understand the weight of what they're doing. They have a, will to live.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
like
I was going to say they got
they
skin in the
don't
game.
want to go
Yeah.
do something crazy. And I've actually had more people where they're like, hey, I have my light sport license, but like I just always want to fly with an instructor. Like, it's fun, but like
Yeah.
I'm kind of scared by myself. I only have time to fly once every 2 months, and I cannot become proficient. So every time I go, like, let's just go get a burger, and you're like, this is the easiest day of work for me ever. So fine,
Yeah, that's
So-
perfect. Interesting. Okay. Any other, before we shift gears, any other thoughts on the light sport stuff, Katie?
I think we covered a lot of it. I mean, the biggest thing is there's just crazy rules. Like, it's different. It's weird. The endorsements are different. So there's a lot of help. Subpart K is where it's at. I have a whole PDF guide that I made because everybody was just asking me all these questions, and I couldn't possibly sit down with every person one-on-one. So I put that together. There's also some NAFI CFI resources. But if this is something you want to get into, just sit down with someone or get that guide or do something to fully understand what you can and cannot do before you get into it, because I do see a lot of people with, misinformation. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Makes sense. Okay. That's some valuable resources there. Okay. Wanted to ask you a couple questions about your professional pilot journey now. You said you're flying the PC-12. Our old producer, Joel, I hope he's listening to this episode. We did this whole segment where we talked about our dream airplanes, and he came out of left field and he's like, the PC-12, that's my dream airplane.
We're like, what?
What? Someday, hopefully
Pretty
I'll
fun.
So tell us a little bit about what you do in the PC-12 now. How was that transition, and do you enjoy it? Tell us a little bit about what you're up to.
Yeah, so I did the whole light sport CFI thing, and then I went and worked for DOS Aviation in Pueblo, Colorado for IFT as an instructor. And I just love instructing. Like, I probably would do that if I could actually pay my bills doing it full time. So I did that for a bit, and then I was at about 2,000 hours, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of ready to move on and do something else for a bit. So I went to the 135 world, and I wanted to live in Idaho, Wyoming, or Montana. So I started calling FBOs in places I wanted to live and just asking them if they were hiring. A charter operator out of Boise called me back, and I ended up working for them. So that was fun. Got a lot of great experience. They flew everywhere, like backcountry, in the Pilatus, all kinds of fun stuff. And then from there, I moved over to air ambulance for a little bit better schedule, like 7 on, 7 off. And then while I was doing that, I was also contracting with my current Part 91 company, and they just called me up and asked me to come on full time. So now I'm in the Part 91 world, and I love it. It's really fun. We have a couple PC-12s and a CJ4, and it's just a small operation, but it's a really good quality of life, and it's a fun plane to fly. So it was a pretty easy transition because I had a decent amount of time when I stepped into it. I know a lot of people reach out to me and they're like, I have 600 hours. Can I get in a PC-12? I'm like, unfortunately, now the insurance mins are like 3,000, which is wild. So it's kind of easy once you have a little bit more experience, because it is just like kind of slow and easy to fly. So.
Yeah. When you were working for the 135, did you start right seat? Were they doing 2 crew or was it all?
No, it was all single pilot. And I had, Part 135 captain mins are like 1,200 hours, blah, 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 all the other things. So I had that. They really hired people at like 1,500 or 1,800 for captains. And so I had the time and I just went to flight safety and then just jumped in the left seat by myself and started ripping around the country and doing all kinds of
flying
things
in the backcountry.
Yeah, give us some
Like, could
backcountry.
you go to
info.
like how backcountry?
Well, Idaho is awesome for the backcountry. So, I mean, us in Alaska have like the most unimproved runways of anywhere in the country. And I think the next one is like, they have like 10 and we have like 50, like it's a big
insane.
jump. It's awesome. So Stanley, Idaho is really cool. It's like kind of like a little driveway but it's mostly a gravel runway.
Yeah, it's like part
way up in the
paved, right?
mountains.
And then mostly gravel.
Yeah, it's like 1,600 feet of pavement. And
What's the point of that? Have you figured that out?
I don't really know. I'm just like, just make it all just gravel.
I don't know.
Like, it's weird.
Because it's a pretty
So
long
that
gravel
one-
runway, but then this little
It's
It's
just a
pretty
little
long,
extra.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, 4,000 feet or something. It's pretty long.
Did you fly into Johnson Creek?
I
Or
haven't yet in
Johnson
the
Creek?
Pilatus.
Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah. That would be fun, though. I think, that one's pretty long, too. I
Yeah,
think
you
it's
could
like
put.
4,000 feet.
There's a guy that flew an MU2 in there too.
Oh, dang.
Mm,
Yeah.
It was exciting.
I don't know that.
It's on YouTube. Check it
Yeah.
out.
Okay. All right.
But
Speaking
there's
of
a lot of like starter ones, like Garden Valley is like, and Smiley, they're like golf course type
Right.
Yeah,
grass,
Smiley.
so they're pretty easy.
What were you flying charters in there for? To pick up like people hunting or what?
Yeah, like Smiley, Stanley, everybody wants to go like hike, raft. There's a couple people that live up there. So they would just want to fly private to get back in there because it's like a 3-hour drive from Boise. So I have a guy that I'll contract with now and he lives between Smiley and Stanley. So we'll just take him into Smiley and then he has a car there and just drives home. So
Cool.
It's really cool. Okay. Now you've started to make some content for folks, a lot focused around light sport, training, your experience, also kind of following you around in your job. Number one, give us your best YouTuber voice. Max and I have been really working on this.
Tell us how you
Yeah.
direct people to smash the like button.
Yeah.
Go
How
ahead.
to give us the whole, like,
is that
how do
what
you
I'm
do it?
supposed to be saying?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that's like,
Yeah,
maybe
so
I
you don't
should
have
do
kids
that. I'll
yet.
get
That's
more
the thing. You don't
views.
listen to these.
Yeah. You don't have Mr. Beast yapping in the
And
background.
these guys
Yeah.
playing video
I
games
haven't
while
found that yet.
taking video of them playing video games, and
Yeah.
your kids just like
It's a little bit
could be
much.
on not more on the edge of their seat watching some idiot play Roblox. And
So you're not a traditional YouTuber. That's good. We're glad to
You
hear
don't
He's
that.
start off
making,
with
like,
what's
You're
up,
not
guys?
like
more
What's
than
up,
all of us
guys?
combined.
You're not peddling
This
some.
is Katie. We're here at Smiley Creek. We just dropped off a guy. He lives between
Yeah.
here and Stanley. If you want to see
Maybe
what
I'm
happens
not,
when
like,
we
really
pick him
there
up,
yet.
smash that like button.
subscribe
Stay
tomorrow.
tuned. Subscribe. Tell your friends.
Okay, so you're not doing that. That's good. We're glad to hear that. What do you enjoy doing? Is there something in particular that you have found?
So I kind of just started like TikTok during the pandemic just because it was kind of fun and there was not a whole lot else to do. So I just kind of filmed whatever. Like it's mostly empty legs, because I just, sometimes
Right.
it's weird, like with certain people or whatever. So it's generally empty legs. Sometimes I would do with students during the pandemic if they wanted me to like help their trainings, they can review. So it's always like with people's permission, obviously, because I think that's kind of weird
Right.
any other way. But that was just kind of fun. I was like, this is kind of cool. It's kind of like a big photo album. I can look back at like some of the fun flights I've done. And then I felt a little weird about it because you're like just so out there
Yeah.
in the world. So I kind of set it aside. And I had a little bit going on Instagram. And then when I met my husband, he's an entrepreneur. And so I was like, don't judge me. I have like a little bit of a social media thing. He thought it was really cool. And so that was the first time I'd ever kind of seen it through his eyes. And he's like, this is really neat because you love instructing and you basically can like flight instruct like millions of people essentially, So if I put like a video out on like a certain topic, it really does get seen by hundreds of thousands of people and then I can answer people's questions. So that was a part of it for me to like pick it back up. I've also been able to help a lot of people. Like I've been able to help be on the board to like give away scholarships or like promote certain organizations that do charitable work. I'm helping like the Idaho 99s promote their Girls in Aviation Day. So I've just kind of learned this social media skill and a lot of people are overwhelmed by it. So I can help out with that. So that's been really cool. But it's just kind of like the whole goal of it is like to help the aviation community, entertainment, and then just like the joy of aviation, So it'll just kind of be a little bit of everything. But even some people will watch like the YouTube stuff I've started doing. It's fun because you can do more long form.
Yeah.
So I'll do like the whole approach. Like I have one I just made going into John Wayne, and I try to put like the approach plates on there, the comms, because a lot of people are trying to learn.
Yeah.
And so they'll ask me like, wait, why are you doing this right now? Like, why did you say this like this? And so then I can kind of help them because obviously we know it's expensive to sit down with a CFI, and the content I'm putting out is not, in lieu of training. It is not me personally instructing you like for legal purposes. Obviously, I feel like
Right.
that goes without saying. It's just kind of for fun. And if you get something out of it, you do, because I am not your individual CFI, but it
This-
does help people.
This title's the best. The Day in the Life of a Corporate Pilot. Be my SIC to SLC.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
My
pretty good.
husband
That
does
is
my
pretty good.
thumbnails.
Did ChatGPT come up with that? Be honest.
Yeah, it did 100%.
It's got to be. And then
Nothing's real anymore.
That's right. As we were using ChatGPT to write some scripts for us here 20 minutes ago.
Yeah,
As you
and-
should.
It's amazing. That is really cool. I think that is, we've talked to some career coaches and other folks that talk about like helping people get ready. And there's so many tools that are available now that were not available when we were coming up. Like there's an entire Embraer 190 systems course just on YouTube. You
Whoa.
could just watch
Yeah.
and go through that. And then you can actually dial in and see folks, operating the airplane. I did that. I switched to the Challenger 350 about a year and a half ago. And I remember going on YouTube for a little bit and just like watching like what does the cockpit look like? Or like, how do you start, and you can see that stuff earlier on. Like it's very helpful. So that's really cool that you're doing that for folks.
Yeah, like that's kind of what I try to make videos around. Like I went and did the chart updates on the CJ the other day, and I'm like, every time I'm on YouTube, how do I do this?
Yeah.
And there's not a great video, so I just made one, It's just stuff like that. That's how we're all doing it nowadays. We're on YouTube.
Yeah.
I like to watch a lot of like the pilot debrief and stuff like that. I really haven't gotten into like talking about accidents or anything yet, just because I'm like, I don't know if I want to step into that sphere. But I do feel like there's a lot of value to be gained from, professional pilots sharing their knowledge online. So,
Yeah.
Or via podcast, Katie.
yeah,
Sometimes.
one's not better than the other, guys.
That's right. So, all right. Well, we will get you out of here on this. It sounds like you've had some cool experiences in airplanes, but we need to get a good story from you. Air ambulance experience, single pilot, PC-12 stories.
Over gross weight in a light sport.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I've never done that before. It's the
not
joys
possible.
of being a girl, is you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just kidding. Let's see. Air ambulance was cool. I mean, it was the people that work that job, like the med crew, are just amazing. The weather is always, it's the middle of the night. It's always moderate ice, moderate everything, And the company I worked for had a great safety culture. You could turn down whatever you wanted to turn down without question, which I think is super important. But you're never more proficient than like flying single pilot air ambulance in Idaho in the winter,
Yeah.
So that was really a great experience. There's too many to count from that, but I do remember one patient which just blew my mind that we had. And this was a man who unfortunately had tried to take his own life by shooting himself in the face. And he was unsuccessful, and he was walking and talking on scene when we got there, completely awake. And so that was pretty wild. And I was super impressed with the med crew. They are just like, well, this is another day in our life. And I don't know what happened to that gentleman, but I hope he was okay. I hope he got the help he needed. But that was just one that always stuck out in my mind because I'm like, okay, let's go flying now.
Yeah. How do you focus? Like,
try to take him to
I guess
trauma
that's
care.
kind of a skill you have to build as a air ambulance pilot. Like you can see that, but then you have to get your head in the game like 2 minutes later and kind of
I
forget
don't
about
know.
what's going on
I
back
think
there.
I was
and
like
just,
dropped. Yeah. I think I dropped on my head as a child because I was not really that worried about it. Like I was just more, to me, I was like, I'm helping this guy, like I'm doing everything I can right now to get him where he needs to be as fast as possible. And there's nothing else I can do. So, I never like tried to rush or anything because like that whole military thing, like slow is smooth and smooth is fast. That's like one thing I kind of tried to keep in my mind. But the other part of it was just like, I feel like I'm helping already. So it wasn't really like a traumatic thing for me. It was more just
Yeah.
like, this person's life is rough regardless, but we're doing something positive for it, you know? So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that the med crews have had moments that they've needed to like decompress from because
Yeah.
they're much more involved. But for me, I was just like, I don't know why that one didn't bother me. I probably should have.
It's a very healthy outlook, Katie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Just don't think about it, right?
Yeah, right. That's what
FAA
Dylan
wants
has
us
a
to
very
do.
famous saying. He also just says, "Fake it till you make it," which
Yeah.
has worked out really well for him in his aviation career. Apparently.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I only have a
Let's
light
live
sports
back.
certificate. I've been faking it all these years.
Basic med and the light sport, bro.
Sure, somebody has done that.
Probably. Yikes. Yeah, we had a friend that also flew PC-12 single pilot air ambulance, and it seemed like all of his calls were at night exclusively.
Yeah,
like there
they're
was never like
a
the
lot at
10
night.
a.m. like, hey, just pop on down. It's a sunny day, you know.
Yeah. And I think what that was is like a lot of those company fly a lot of rotor because rotor is sexy and all the hospitals want a helicopter that can land on the roof.
Yeah.
And the helicopters do a lot. I mean, they're super important. They drop into the backcountry and save somebody's life. You know, the fixed wing, we're doing a lot more like inter-facility transfers. The problem is the helicopters cannot fly in ice at all.
Oh.
Most of them cannot fly in IMC. The ones that can fly in IMC, they can't fly in ice. So anytime it's like spring, fall, winter in the Pacific Northwest, they can't do anything. And they also have to have a visible horizon. So at night in the Pacific Northwest, like, good luck. So the fixed wing flies a lot, you know, a lot at night and in bad weather. Like, that's just how it goes.
It's good. I mean, that.
So fun times.
And I imagine like in your career going forward, those experiences will be some of the ones that will come up on job interviews and kind of talking about like formational times in your experience. Like to me, that just sounds like some of the most valuable you can get.
Yeah, it definitely, I mean, I really am very grateful for my whole aviation experience. I feel like, you know, I like doing these kinds of podcasts and stuff like that because I have learned so much just from sitting down and having a 5-minute conversation in an FBO with a very experienced pilot. And I think that a lot of those older pilots, you know, especially past retirement age, they still have a lot to give because they can say one thing and it just opens up a whole thing in your mind and makes it make sense and just creates, you know, more knowledge and you're a safer pilot from that. So I think that's important just to share all of it.
Well said. All right, Katie. Thank you so much for explaining light sport to us. I learned a lot.
Absolutely.
I learned a lot.
Yeah, you know I learned a lot. And we're going to encourage folks to check out your Instagram at Pilot Kaity. We'll have a link to your YouTube channel in the show notes. And we'll be looking. Max is already looking forward to being your SIC to SLC. He's got the video queued up. We'll watch this afterwards. We'll have a full critique for you. We'll drop leave in the
Thanks,
comment
guys.
of the
Just
video.
check the
Appreciate the
comments in
support.
about an hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure to smash that subscribe button.
There you go. You're ready. You're primed.
It's smash the like button.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
see, I need
subscribe
more,
and
I need more
smash that
training.
like button.
And also, the extra level is then you got to hit the notification bell. That's okay. You can practice that.
Darn, I got a lot to learn. Thanks, guys.
Baby steps.
I'll take some professional coaching here shortly.
That's right. All right, Katie. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Katie.
All right, Max. The wheels are still turning on how we can figure this out with the light sport deal. But I agree. There's got to be the cheaper the airplane. This is another.
Listen to this, though. Listen to this. This is interesting. During the break,
Mm-hmm.
the Cessna 162 Skycatcher failed in the general. AI has the overview for us. Failed in the general aviation market for a number of reasons, including the high price, poor flight performance. The Skycatcher's flight performance was not as good as its competitors in the LSA market. Poor useful load. Manufacturing strategy was torturous. What does that mean? Flight testing mishaps. Oh,
Was it? Did they try and build that out of a composite? I think that was a
I don't
composite
know.
airplane. Yeah.
FAA demanded change of Skycatcher that would have added additional expensive flight testing. It was assembled in China, which was intended to tap into the Asian market, but didn't happen. I didn't know that. And fragile construction. It was fragile. For example, one pilot reported the secondary door latch would not close all the way and came half open.
The internet says it was actually made out of aluminum with only a few fiberglass components. So, no. I mean, it just seems like that. This is why I wonder, like when people talk about electric aircraft, and the 152 that can stay in the air for an hour and a half on a battery, that seems like it'd be really valuable at some point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the cost would be so much lower. The maintenance would be so much lower. And that's what we need. You know, it's not like, yes, it's not the airplane that you're going to fly
Only
across the
Elon
country.
Musk had more time to start another company.
Well, it's once the battery weight gets down, I think that's going to be
that's the bottleneck in all electrified vehicles.
Yeah, exactly.
So the battery. So
yeah, well, I'd like to hear from our listeners if anyone else has experimented with light sport. If you've looked for your own little loophole, or you've maybe figured out that's just a cheaper airplane to own to fly personally. Yeah, I'm curious. Could be some more angles. I love the loopholes.
Big loophole guy.
Big loophole guy. I mean, I'm probably a believer. I know we've talked to a few folks, like probably the best, I wouldn't say loophole, but the most price, the most effective way to go from a price standpoint is usually just to buy your own old airplane and fly that if you can, and then sell it. And if you buy an airplane with the values just don't really go down on those airplanes if you buy them right.
Truth.
I mean, do you remember that guy we talked to that was the dispatcher for United Airlines that wanted to get into that wanted to become a pilot for them? Remember, we told him buy an airplane, and he did, and he is flying the tar out of that thing, and he's well on his way. So,
God, great. Maybe we can, when the dust settles, we can do a case study and see if our advice was actually A, useful, and B, what happened.
Flight advice, the 10-year reunion.
And what about homeboy with the clapped out? The clapped out warrior?
Oh, I just sent him a bunch of stickers.
I know. I don't know why that's so funny.
It's good. Hide the bullet holes. Perfect. Well, thanks to Katie for coming on to the program. We enjoyed talking with her. You'll find her social media in the show notes if you want to check out what she's up to.
Very active on the socials.
Very active. Yeah, it's a great conversation, Max. Anything else you want to add before we hit the road?
Yes, but I'll save it for next time.
Before you hit the road, very early, I should say.
Very early.
Okay. Very good. Well, thanks to all of our sponsors: Tim Pope, Advanced Aircrew Academy, the AirComp Calculator, Veris Jet Sales, Harvey Watt. Did I say Advanced Aircrew Academy? I'll say it again.
Twice now.
Yeah.
Yes.
2 for 1.
You got them all.
And thanks to all of our listeners. We'll be back with another show soon. Mailbag, flight advice. You can hit us up, info@215podcast.com if you want to be part of the conversation.
More Skycatcher history. Who knows?
And a picture of the Suburban for men. All coming up.
New interior, baby. All right.
All right, we'll talk to you next week. Until then, remember,
flexibility is the key to air power. See ya.
The statements made in this show are our own opinions and do not reflect, nor were they under any direction from any of our employers.